Top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody. This is Tom Dutta, the host of the Quiet Warrior Show. Hey, we're here today live streaming. You know what that means? We're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And this will be produced in a future release for the international podcast, The Quiet Warrior Show. Please find that on any of your podcast channels and an exciting YouTube premiere video. So don't forget to reach down and click the button, subscribe to the Tom Dutta YouTube channel. We want to make sure that we honor our guests by watching those when they come out. I want to tell you, I've been excited to meet our guest. He's waiting in the green room there. I'm going to tell you a couple things about this man. His name is E.A. Csolkovits. He and I have talked a lot about a lot of things, including how his name should be said. It might be something like Go Chuck Wood, but born in Chicago and Illinois in 1956. You'll see a stock ticker on the screen there. Man, it jumped out at me. E.A. started out as the son of a milkman, 16 years old, starting a career in commission sales. From there, he became, a millionaire at age 23. He's done a lot of things, chairman of a company, created many organizations around the world. But the biggest thing about his story, everyone, that got my attention was something about giving and taking. And so let's bring him on now and start the conversation. Hey, EA, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on your show. And Tom, I was watching the minute ticker for the intro there, and when it hit 2 minutes, I thought, oh, he has just enough time to say my last name.
Yeah,
2 minutes.
Yeah, we did it, man. We did it. I was expecting to see you playing air guitar or something there.
Yeah.
Didn't see that on your resume. Hey, listen, the Quiet Warrior Show, the narrative is about with the hero's journey. We're about storytelling, bringing people on to tell their passions and really talk about how they're impacting the world. Take us back before we get into the giver-taker part. Take us back to, I call it your sucker punch, your first defeat. And along the way to success, there's always a setback. What's your biggest one personally or in business?
All right. Well, the first big defeat, and there's been 3 of them, and each one of them actually caused me to write a book to hopefully never be in that position again. And that's really what brought about eventually what we know as Givers University. My first major defeat was due to a business partnership that I had. And back many years ago, Tom, and I'm sure you'll probably remember this. I can go back many years. I think you just go back many. And there was a box that you could put on your desk, and it was for recording incoming messages. And on the left side was your outgoing message. It was called a cassette tape for those that haven't seen those, are listeners. And it was on the left side, and you recorded your outgoing message. On the right side was another cassette tape for recording all your incoming messages when someone left you a message. The one on the right side was 60 minutes long, and it was voice actuated. So that meant it kept recording as long as possible. As long as someone was talking, it would keep recording as long as, there was tape room left on the 60 minutes. So I left my home for an hour and a half, and I came back, and the whole 60-minute tape had been used up. And I thought, oh boy, some kids, because sometimes kids, when they realized it would keep recording, they would play with it. And I thought, some kids got a hold of it. Boy, was I in for a shocker. It's at the stage. I had a training company that, separate from being mentored from my business mentor, with a separate gentleman. I had a training company that was very successful in Chicago, multiple offices. It was doing very well. And I was 50% partner, and another gentleman was 50% partner. Well, this gentleman, Jim, who was my 50% partner, called me and left a message. And back in those days, Tom, when someone was calling you could hear a tone in the background that lets you know someone was calling in while you were talking. It was like beep, beep, and you could hear it in the background. And so he just leaving me a message to call him back. That was it, like a few seconds. But I heard the tone in the background. He hit my machine so fast. I should say he hit the receiver on his phone so fast. He put my machine on call recording and recorded the whole conversation with him and someone else.
Oh no.
I know, and I wasn't even home. And wait, here's the part. They went through for 60 minutes, step by step, exactly how they were going to kick me out of the company and take it over.
Oh my goodness.
And I heard it in their words. Let me tell you, when it's different when you hear third party, but when you hear the plan, step by step. And I thought, man, what are the odds of this, Tom? I mean, he could have called me when I was home. I would have just picked up the phone. No, he called when I was gone. That guy could have called him at another time, but no, he called him right then. And they could have had another conversation. Could have been about golf. No, the plan.
Wow.
So I got to tell you, that was my first major defeat, because I was blindsided because of who I had in my life. And I didn't realize I had the wrong person in my life.
Wow. Well, I want to first of all just honor you being vulnerable in telling a story like that. I know it brings back memories, and sometimes they're painful. So we want to honor you for that. How old were you when that occurred? Was that your?
Oh no, I'm back. Okay, sorry.
How old were you when that occurred? Just curious. What stage
I gotta tell
life?
you, I had to be. Let's see. I usually don't get asked that question on specifics on how old I was right then, but I was in my early 20s.
Wow.
Because I met my business mentor and made my commitment with him when I was 19.
All right. Well, this is a good place to go back and then just talk a little bit. They say that, most people, when they're born into the world, you come in there with a personality, and your neurons in your brain are empty. There's some millions of those, and the thoughts and emotions aren't in there. So we're shaped by the people who nurture us and by what we hear and what we take in. It appeared to me you were born the son of a milkman, apparently, which is pretty cool. I remember the days of getting my milk delivered to the house.
We did.
And yes, I do remember the 8-track tape, the cassette tape, and my dad's truck was always full of 8-tracks.
Oh yeah, I had 8-tracks.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood, just before we get into the takeoff. So you're son of a milkman. Sounds like maybe a hardworking dad. What kind of got you on the track of getting into entrepreneur work? And then you said something about a mentor, and you hit this millionaire status at age 23, which is remarkable.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. And going back to, back then they had milk came in glass gallons.
That's right.
And there was a box outside the house that had money in it. And everyone knew there was money in it, and that was milkman money, and no one touched it. Everyone just knew that was for the milkman, And so at 5 years old, I was helping my dad. He had distributorship for a company called Twin Oaks in Chicago, Illinois, which is where I'm originally from. And then I made, after that time period, I made my first big step into success, Tom, and I became a janitor. I mean, you want to talk the big, now I didn't mind that because business was always picking up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
you sounds like you're really cleaned up in that.
Oh, he goes for the one up. Yeah. Good job. Exactly right. And so also at the ripe old age of 16, while I was a janitor, I was able to be bonded. And this is one of the more influential moments in my life. Being in Chicago, living in the Oak Brook area, which is at that point was the world headquarters for McDonald's. They've moved since then, but back then, that's for years and decades, it was there.
Yeah.
So I watched the McDonald's phenomenon take place. So every Wednesday, since I was able to be bonded with this janitorial service as janitor, I cleaned the home of a lady whose name was June Martino. Now, did you ever see the movie with Michael Keaton called The Founder?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, of course, that's about Ray Kroc, and let me tell you, that's very Hollywoodized. But there's certain events that are there, but it's Hollywood drama, and Ray really wasn't that way. But Ray's constantly talking to a lady outside his office, and he says, "June, June, June." Right? That's the lady whose house I cleaned. That lady. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
That's June Martino, right? And of course, there's an actress in the movie, but but the real June Martino, I cleaned her house. I was there every single Wednesday, and I'd pull out the Rolls Royce. I thought, oh my God, cleaning out the garage because this car's worth more than I'll ever make in 20 lifetimes, just the car, But one of the things that I noticed, Tom, was she was very approachable. She was very easy to talk to. She wasn't an alien. She wasn't a superhero. And also, she wasn't condescending at all. She was actually just the opposite, very nice. So one day, snot-nosed 16-year-old, yours truly, mustered up all of my nerve because I could see she was in an extra good mood. And I went up to her, and she knew who I was because she saw me, always said hi, always very nice. And I said, June, could I ask you a question? She said, sure. I said, could you tell me about it? She said, what? She said, I said, McDonald's. I'm not kidding, Tom. She put her arm around me, brought me into the kitchen, and the entire day, because I asked her in the morning, the entire day told me the entire story, step by step, all the way through to the moment we were sitting there. And she was even having the maids and butlers bringing in food so she could keep telling me the whole story. But at one point, I don't know if you remember in the movie, June goes into Ray's office and says, Ray, we're out of money. We don't have any money. That prompts Ray to call the brothers.
Yeah.
I need greater, more percentage. That is a true event. And at that point, Ray couldn't pay her. So she told me, I mean, this is decades before the movie came out. She told me Ray couldn't pay her. So they had made an agreement that he would pay her in worthless company stock, wouldn't pay her any money for a short time.
Yeah.
And he would take the phone calls from the bill collector so she wouldn't get hassled. That was the deal. So I asked her, I said, June, I'm a janitor. I get paid on Friday. I live paycheck to paycheck. If I don't get paid on Friday, I'm not showing Saturday, right? I said, why did you do it? And I could tell Tom, I just asked her a question no one else had ever asked her. And she looked back and she sat back and stared right at me for about 10 seconds and seemed like a year. And then what she said made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. When I asked her, why did you do it? Why'd you take this worthless stock and all that? And she said, Tom, because I believed in Ray.
Wow. Let me just jump in there and just want to jump in and riff on that. I believed in Ray, and there's a thread in, I think, all of our stories. They say that some people work for a brand, a corporation or a company. Others work for an individual. And yesterday I was talking to somebody about leaving jobs, and they say you don't leave a company, you leave bad management or someone, in a relationship. That's fascinating. But you get back into that story, but I want to throw this out there just as a thread that I remember in the Founder movie. It is one of my favorites. I watched it twice, actually. I was kind of waiting for the Batmobile to pull up at McDonald's a couple times because of Keaton's role. I remember he went through a divorce, and this had me thinking about what you said about your business partner. That isn't it true, EA, that it doesn't have to be a partner, but if your spouse, somebody that you spend most of your life with, is not aligned with your vision. And I remember watching that movie, and his spouse at that time, she didn't seem like an entrepreneur. She didn't believe. I mean, he was doing all these crazy things and believing that this would take off. He eventually had to find somebody who I think was more aligned to his pedigree, to who he was. So just take us forward from there where you were. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, thank you. And I remember my first thought after she said, because I believed in Ray, my very first thought after, Tom, was, I got to find me a Ray Kroc. That's it. I know I want to be successful. And back then, Tom, I had it backwards. I thought I want to be rich and live happily ever after. Not realizing we're supposed to live happily ever after first. Then you could be rich, right? I had it backwards even then. But I thought, I got to find a Ray Kroc. I need someone to take me under their wing. I want to do it. I want to be successful. I just don't know how, right? So it wasn't a couple months later, then I met my business mentor, and he took me under his wing, and he was a gentleman that literally changed the trajectory of my life forever. And he actually, and because I could tell he was very wealthy, opened up a jewelry store, a diamond store in
that was Sam, I think.
Sam Robbins. Sam Robbins, exactly. And he offered me a job, and I started working for him, and I became chairman of the board of that company. And we made an agreement. And I did, by the way, when on part of the agreement, he said, and I said, Sam, will you teach me? I want to make it. Can you just teach me everything I need to know? All I know is I have the desire, but I don't know what to do. And he said, all right, I'll teach you, but with one condition. Now, I was going to say yes, no matter what he said. It didn't matter to me what the condition was, right? But he said, when the time is right, and you will know that time. When that time is right, he said, you have to share it with everyone else. Wow. I said, done, no problem, no problem. That became the vow and the oath that later on became the reason for Givers University.
Well, that's amazing. I just want to, tip my hat. We'll honor Sam, a big part of your life. I read somewhere about his passions for health. He struggled with diabetes, and then I kind of smiled because he said chairman of the board for everybody. That's a teaching moment. I mean, a janitor to finding a mentor to chairman of the board. But man, you were like 21 or 23 years old. How many people do that? That's another question that came to my mind here as it went in a direction that rich and happy versus happy and rich. Coming from your early roots, where did you get the belief system that, you just were, or what drove you to be wealthy and all this? I mean, somehow that happened. What do you give credit to that?
Well, it wasn't, I mean, in my earlier days, son of a milkman stuff, it wasn't even a pilot light, I mean, the flame was so small, it was barely even lit. And my first big touch on that was when I met June Martino. And I cleaned, by the way, all of her sons' houses. She bought a house for each one of her sons.
Okay.
And they were all in this area called Ginger Creek, which was right, literally in Oak Brook, right where the world headquarters for McDonald's was. But I realized right then, Tom, that it wasn't, you didn't have to be the spectacular, amazing superhero to really be both rich and happy. She was my first person that I actually saw that, Rolls Royces packed in the garage and Ferraris for all the kids, really living that way. And I thought, wow, this is really great. So she was that inspiration without her ever knowing it, that I kept thinking as I'm looking at her, well, she can do it. Maybe I can too. But I need a Ray Kroc. I need someone to teach me just like she had Ray Kroc. And that's what happened.
Oh, I love it. So there you are. You have your mentor, Sam. Everybody, it's a teaching moment. Find a mentor or a coach, whatever you want to call it, somebody you aspire to follow. And like you heard from EA. Now let's get into the givers and takers. I purposely tagged the show, that givers earn 3 times more than takers. Part of me said, wait a minute, is there a formula there? And, I've grown up learning about giving and taking. I mean, it's in all areas of life. Spirituality, that's part of it. If you're part of a church, they encourage you to give. And then I never really understood in my own life, because I grew up with a bit of an ego, and then I made some shifts at my early age when I became a CEO of a company, that it seemed to be always about me. And I was living in the world of significance and material things. Part of it comes from maybe my childhood, but then I discovered that being in service and giving, this whole world, the world without versus within. Tell us about that. What's the difference between a giver and taker? What do you mean by all that? And why is it better to be a giver?
Very good. And that, I think that's one of the reasons why I love the name of your podcast, Tom. And, the Quiet Warrior is really because one of the things we do is we teach people what that quiet battle is. We teach something, and to go through the explanation of the givers and takers, etc. We teach something that simply is not being taught today. And, I average probably 1 to 3 podcasts a day being guests. And I can share with you, in every instance, they always go, wow, this is great. No one's teaching that today. And I'll start out with a question for your listening audience and those watching the stream. Think of the fires that you stomp out each day. Think about when your stress level spikes. Think about when your energy level is totally drained. You just had a conversation with someone. You barely remember what we talked about, other than the fact you have no energy left. All those 3 things, all 3 of those, Tom, have one thing in common. There's a name attached to them. And today in businesses, and all of your listeners, we see it every day, businesses coming and going faster than ever before in history. Products being antiquated overnight, faster than ever before. What do we have left? Our relationships. And no one's teaching us how to discern our relationships. Who should we have close to us? And who should we respectfully distance ourselves from? Because they're going to make us collateral damage, whether we want it or not. So the first thing I want to mention to all of your listening audience, Tom, is we love everybody. I say it again, we love everybody. And what we do is we teach people to discern, to separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we may not love. And from watching these specific deeds, specific things they're doing, these are not broad swaths of innocuous information and references where, we say this and then they go, okay, that sounds good. What do I do with that? We've sifted it and funneled it all the way down to the actual deeds to look for when you see them doing these certain specific things. Then begin to discern, should I pull them in closer into my life and have them a part of my giver community? Or should I begin respectfully, not nasty, not rude or insensitive, respectfully beginning to distance myself, because takers bring with them the 3 Ds of a taker, and that is defeatism, disruption, and destruction. And they're going to make me collateral damage, and they're going to be a fire I'm going to be stomping out. So what happens today's time is no one knows how to recognize these things. And even if they did, they don't know what to do about it. So we're teaching people to discern relationships. And if I was to use the example, right now, if you had itchy eye and runny nose, I could probably assume you have a cold. I'm not able to see the cold, but the cold is the cause. I can see the symptoms. We could see that we teach people the symptoms or the actual deeds with actual checklists to say, look for these specific things. And when you see them doing these things, start to discern and bring them in closer.
Now, would that have been something that if you had that, you mentioned the story at age 20 where you were taken advantage of by a business partner. If you had that back then, hindsight's 2020, do you think the outcome would have been different?
Yes, because I wouldn't have been in a relationship to begin with. In fact, all 3 of my major defeats in life, and temporary defeats, right? One of the things my mentor said, don't use the word failure. He said, it's got too much of an eternal ring to it.
Yeah.
He says, use temporary defeat. And he taught me the following: every adversity, not some, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or a greater benefit. It's up to us to see that. So I learned those things from my mentor. And when that business thing happened and I was blindsided, I was able to learn. And that became another thing for me to begin teaching other people, because a lot of people can relate to being betrayed by a business partner.
Yeah, amazing. And everybody, a teaching moment there. So by being able to recognize givers and takers, give us a quick hit here. How do we find or recognize people around us who are takers? Just give us a quick example.
Yep. Well, I'll give you a couple of things. We have what we call the arrows. It's one of the things we're going to give to your listeners absolutely free, a checklist of 6 arrows that takers shoot at givers all the time. And one of those is called, when you see a taker switch from a fact-based, high moral ground conversation to personal attacks, that's one of the arrows, right? Because they can no longer have a conversation based on the facts and the high moral ground. They have to go to, you don't know what you're talking about. See, that's an attack,
that's
right? You don't know, or you don't know me. You don't know what you're talking about. Now it's all of a sudden you, because now that's what happened. A taker just got revealed and they just shot an arrow. Another one would be when they try to a taker will try to transfer guilt from a taker onto a giver, such as, you made me angry. Actually, that statement's not even an accurate one to begin with. No one else can make someone else angry. Right. We've got to allow them, right? So we teach people these discerning statements, references, and the things for them to watch, and then they can begin to discern. And it's a skill set. It's something that can be taught, and it's just not being taught anywhere else.
Yeah, it's amazing. Talk about some of the things, the Givers University. Talk a bit about that so we understand what that is. And then obviously over your career, I've looked at your background. You've acquired a lot of wealth. What do you do to give back? What are you doing with that wealth?
Well, I appreciate that. And well, first of all, to mention about Givers University, we have online courses. Givers University is based on a series of 3 books as the cornerstone. And those books are called Give to Be Great. That's the series. And the first book is called The Giver's Mindset, how a giver thinks versus how a taker thinks. And that also has the 6 arrows in it. We teach the 6 arrows that takers shoot. We also teach the 25 do's, 25 specific deeds that you should be watching for. And by the way, we're going to give those to your listeners free. We want them to have it.
Fantastic.
The second thing is is called The Giver's Lifestyle. That's the second book. The 30 habits that givers have, and the 30 habits that takers have. Watch these habits that they do over and over again. And then the third is called the Giver's Lifelong Learning. And there we talk about the 6 virtual prisons. The 6 virtual prisons that when people see the list on, they look at it and they go, oh boy, I can see I'm in 2 of those already. These are virtual prisons that people walk around in and they don't even realize they're in them. So that consists of this cornerstone course of Give to Be Great, this series of 3 books and courses. It's audio lessons so people can get it in audio format and do commute learning and listen while they're walking, etc. So Givers University was all founded going all the way back in its seed form to my business mentor and my vow and my oath with him. And that's what I'm doing right now. And I share with people, even when I, and we don't have time in our podcast here today, but for my second major defeat, my third major defeat, I share with people how huge amounts of wealth can go into your life and out of your life when we have the wrong people around us.
Yeah. I gotta just riff on that for a minute. You're talking to somebody who gets that personally, and I just want to share a quick story with you that he's a good friend of mine now, and we're working on a project together. He lives in America. I'm up here in Vancouver, British Columbia, and he started this incredible business. It was a restaurant, but it was also an entertainment center. He's a very big recording star, and in the time, this place was amazing. Had a couple partners. One day, they basically pulled the rug out from underneath him. It was an ugly struggle, and he lost everything, and it led him down the path into some mental health issues. And I'm an advocate for that. It's another thread of this that I talk about a lot, that sometimes when we're not victims, but we are exposed to takers, if we're not strong enough or resilient with our own mental health, it can lead to serious issues. This man told me that he walked off stage performing one day, went to his computer and Googled how to commit suicide. And he actually went and tried it, and he didn't finish it, thank goodness. They found him on the floor in a motel room. Anyway, the purpose of that story was that we talk about that now, and in everything we talk about, that continues to haunt him. So that's one of the things I encourage our listeners to do, is get a hold of the books, check out the Givers University, because mindset is a big deal. And I have to say, my wife and I, we don't talk about a lot, it's in my book, but we were victims of a Ponzi scheme. We lost everything midlife. And there was, I think it was the largest fraud of $1 billion worldwide. And we're financial people. I'm a banker. That's my background. We didn't see it coming, but there's a lot of shame that comes with mistakes or getting involved in situations where we don't see the taker. And the last thing I'll say is, I always like to say, EA, that especially when I'm coaching people, is that where do you see your fingerprints might have been on that? In other words, what could you have done differently? Or perhaps did you see something? And I'll finish by this, that when we were involved in this Ponzi scheme, we saw some things, and there was something else going on in our life at the time that chose to look past it. And I think that's a big part of what I got out of your story, is you were hungry for wealth and got involved with a partner and somehow maybe missed something there. So I really love that story that you told us. We can learn from that. There's a question as we move to wrap up in here also, where we can get a hold of all your things about COVID-19 and the current world we're in. Give some advice to our listeners who are entrepreneurs, business owners, and particularly in a time where we can't always see what the world looks like. We can't see, and there's a lot of takers out there.
There for sure is. And and I appreciate you sharing this story. And through the course of Good to Be Great, I want to share with you that I'm brutally honest with my 3 major defeats, because I want people to be able to learn this is what happens. And there's advantages to that. But also I want to share with you that I became a commercial pilot to fly my own planes in the year past. And one of the first things my flight instructor, when I was becoming a private pilot, said, look out the windshield. And when you look out the windshield, look for planes. And when you see a plane that's this size, that's okay. But you don't want to see the plane go from this size to this size real fast. He said, because he's coming at you and you might be 600 miles an hour closure rate. He said, what you want to do is you want to see a plane this big, and then you want to see them go this big. And I use that as an example because what we teach at Givers University is we teach people, look at the plane. Look at it at a distance before you pull it into your life, before it gets too close, because you're about ready to become collateral damage when they're too close to you. So look for these specific signs. Interesting that this can actually be taught. It's a skill set, But everything today is self-improvement, which I'm for, by the way. I know you are too, Tom. We're both self-improvement geeks. I love it. But no one's teaching us, what about the other guy? What if he's not doing it right? What
That's
do we
right.
do then? What do we, who do we bring in and who shouldn't we bring in? So one of the things my business mentor taught me, and I repeat these things to myself as a way to overcome these situations when they come up. And is 3 statements. I will never give up. I will keep rising up, and I will always overcome.
I love that. Never give up, keep rising up, and always overcome. Those are great teaching moment on the show here from EA. EA, why don't you tell us where people can get a hold of your stuff, get a hold of you, and also I'll put it in the show notes for everybody so they have the links to all of that. But just give us a quick commercial.
Well, one of the first things I mentioned, Tom, that one of the best things that your listening audience could do, because they might have family members, they might have people at work that they really love, but they don't know how to broach the subject to them because they can tell they're being a little bit too much takerish or takering, but they don't want to share. They don't want to share it because they love them. One of the best things they could do, Tom, is share a podcast called The Quiet Warrior with them. They really should. And here's how they do it. They just simply say, I heard this great podcast. It was great information, and it was very thought-provoking. Tell me tell me what you think of it. You never know. It may open up their mind, because sometimes by using a third-party mechanism, your podcast, The Great Warrior, right? Or The Quiet Warrior, I mean, the Great Quiet Warrior, I'd say, but certainly The Quiet Warrior, that by sharing that with someone else, they might have one less fire in their own life that they have to stomp out, because it might open that person's mind. So first thing is, your listening audience should share your podcast with everyone they know, especially if they're being a little takerish. If they're noticing that, it's a great way. It's a great way to broach the subject with them through a third party. With us, with Givers University, we have a 7-question quiz. They go to giversuniversity.info, INFO. When they go there, they're actually on the first question. It's 7 questions, literally 4 minutes to do, that fast. And we give them a free assessment on how they're doing. The name of the quiz is, what is your givers and takers awareness IQ? And we give them just a quick assessment based on their answers. There's different assessments on how they're doing at discerning what other people are doing. And then from that, within minutes, they will get the 6 arrows. We're going to send it to them absolutely free. We want them to have it. It's a checklist, and they're going to look at it and go, oh, this is great. And they can actually print it off. We want them to start using it. And then a couple days later, we're going to send them the 25 do's, which are from the first course, a checklist, literally 2 pages of the 25 deeds that we should be looking for when in discerning whether we want someone close in our life or whether we should not. All these are usable for family, for business, in our social life, because our life is filled with relationships. And we want to have our productivity go up. And one of the easiest ways to do that is have the right people around us. But no one said, how do we decide who those are?
Well, it sounds like valuable information. I know that I'm going to go to giversuniversity.info and do that quiz today. Everybody, we'll put it in the show notes, but make it a point of doing that. You're a very humble, kind man, asking to share my show. It wouldn't be great without amazing leaders like yourself coming on. Something tells me we have another show to do on this, because it's got in the back of my mind about childhood, and it just comes for, there's one thing you can't trade in, and that is your parents. And I grew up in a world, and I know 1 and 2 in the world who are going through university. I have an educator friend who's a professor in the U.S., and he said half of my classroom are broken kids from homes, empty homes, disadvantaged. They're going to run the world. So I think you will have you back again if you're open to talk about. I would
love to.
Givers and takers in our life, and sometimes there's decisions we have to make as well. Pretty amazing stuff, EA. I mean, I just love it. If I had time, I'd go play a game of Pong with you or something.
See, we both remember that. I know Pong well.
Absolutely, man. Very quickly, what's a passion of yours? What do you do in your spare time besides the business stuff? Is there something?
Well, I'm a commercial pilot. I love to fly.
Nice.
I work out, cardio 5 days a week, weights 4 days a week. And, I'm very blessed. And so I self-improvement, love to fly. And I can tell you, Tom, truly, I'm thankful for every blade of grass and every tree and all of the great people in life that really are givers. And all we have to do is discern. And when we surround ourselves with these people, so much happiness and so much sorrow can be supplanted. And thank you for having me on your great podcast. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we're going to honor you now. You probably didn't know this, but we're going to give you an award today. If you see in the background there, you see this this image. There's a guy kind of looks like somebody I know. That's actually a challenge coin. And those watching the video of this will see that. But this is a challenge coin. And when I started the show, I said, if I can find people who have taken a mess or taken something purposeful in their life to impact others or the planet to give, I want to create a tribe. So they had these made. Challenge coins originated in World War I. They're carried in the pockets by soldiers. And if you
God bless our military.
Yeah, and if you didn't have yours, you maybe bought drinks or dinner and had some fun. Today, they're used around the world to create community. The front of my coin, which I had handmade and crafted, painted, is the Quiet Warrior Show image. The back is actually the narrative of the hero's journey, which is really the journey we go on to take our life and create to make a difference. So welcome to the Quiet Warrior Tribe. You're officially inducted. We have about 45 of these a year going out, and they're in 15 countries now. And you are exclusively part of that tribe of people who continue to serve and give. I'm very proud of you for what you've done, EA. And on that note, I'll honor you with 4 leadership words. I write these down as you're speaking, not scripted. The first one is wisdom. The second is kindness. Even in communications with this man, there's a kindness to you and how you communicate, even through email. You're authentic and you're resilient. Just keep going. And I'm glad you're in my corner now. And I'll be supporting you on your journey from here on in. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Tom. God bless.
All right, everybody, find your true passion like you hear from EA. Live with that purpose and live the life that you deserve and desire.